Hey, welcome back everyone to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 750, Black Tech Talk. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. Document will be in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with. If you want to get on the panel, the link will be dropped in the chat. And let's get started. So the tech industry has gone through massive layoffs in Q3, Q4 2022, and you're starting to see a lot more of it trickle out now in Q1 of 2023. And so there's been a lot of discussion about where are all these tech people going to be going and who's impacted by this, really more importantly. What has happened in the apocalypse of layoffs, Black people have been impacted the most due to the fact that DEI efforts have been one of the first items on the agenda to be axed in the apocalypse of layoffs. And so I wanted to have a brief conversation tonight and really just go over an article that I came across that I thought that would be very interesting to bring to to bring to bear here. And so let me share my screen. Yeah, let me share my screen. All right, this is from Fast Company. As tech layoffs weaken DEI efforts, the Black talent gap widened dramatically by 2032. A new McKinsey report predicts serious challenges for racial equity in the tech sector over the next decade. Okay. Let me zoom in. The Black tech wage gap is projected to jump 37% in the next decade, resulting in $51.3 billion in lost wages for Black workers each year, according to a report released Friday from the McKinsey Institute on Economic Black Mobility. The report predicts serious challenges to racial equity in tech and comes at a critical moment for the industry as layoffs disproportionately bear down on Black and other historically marginalized employees. Black employees are already underrepresented across the industry. They hold only 8% of the tech jobs and only 3% of the C-level suite positions, but account for 12% of the total U.S. workforce. Sorry, let me just turn that down real quick. That chasm is only going to widen in the coming years. McKinsey's report suggests technology jobs across sectors are projected to increase substantially by 2032, going up about 14%, but those gains won't be evenly distributed. Black tech talent is only projected to grow up 8% in the same time frame. Without substantial interventions, current economic pressures are only going to exacerbate those trends. The tech layoff tracker layoffs FYI recorded about 85,000 jobs lost across 250 companies in the month of January. Research has shown those cuts are taking a serious toll on companies' DEI initiatives, and the first in, last out downsizing mentality has made women and people of color statistically much more likely to lose their jobs. The industry will recover, but without substantial interventions, it won't recover evenly. Closing the racial wage gap requires industry investment in early education opportunities for Black students, better partnerships with HBCUs, and more advancement opportunities for Black talent, according to the McKinsey report. Bearing such efforts, the tech industry faces a serious racial equity program in the coming decade, with billions of wages lost to Black households as a result. Sorry. So this is what's going on here. Okay. The apocalypse that has come about the last couple quarters, it's not over yet. Okay. You're going to start to see it probably trickle off maybe later on in Q3, Q4 of 2023, maybe Q1 2024. But if this is still happening, what does that mean to a lot of Black men in this space? What does that mean to a lot of Black people who are in tech? Let's talk about this real quick. I think if you're trying to get into tech, this should not dissuade you to pull back, right? If you haven't been in tech before and you're trying to get into tech, I know there's a lot of pivoting going on in terms of people going from the non-tech industry to the actual tech industry. And what I'll say is this: I think you should still pursue it. And here's why. Even though there's a lot of turnover due to the layoffs and the apocalypse itself, there's going to be rebound at some point in different areas. So for example, although one division in Amazon, like the Alexa division, might have some turnover there, that does not necessarily translate into AWS having that same turnover. AWS is actually pretty stable, which is Amazon Web Services. They're still pretty stable. Same thing goes for Google. Just because Google may be laying off in one sector, completely reflect in the cloud component, because cloud is still a high growth market for Google, as opposed to their other markets, such as ad revenue and things like that. And so I think you should still pursue it. Now, if you're in the tech sector and you're worried about whether or not you may get the axe, I think that you should be worried about it. I think that you should be skilling up. A lot of the time you'll hear me talk about certifications, and you want to go for big ticket certifications. Big ticket certifications are things that are going to be value add. Now, I was asked a question about ITIL. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick.
Hey, what's up, Mike? Can you hear me okay, bro?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's going on?
Chilling, bro.
All right.
Just getting in.
I was asked about ITIL, which is the IT service, IT infrastructure language framework. So let me pull this up real quick. What is this? So this is the ITIL-4, the framework for management, for the management of IT-enabled services. And the question is, should I focus on ITIL-4? Here's where I stand on this. ITIL-4 is not a big ticket cert. Big ticket certs for me are CCNA, Network Plus, Security Plus, Server Plus. The technical certs are the big ticket items. ITIL-4 is something that's an afterthought, right? You want to go after ITIL-4 after you've completed all the other big ticket items. Not that you don't get it, but you don't put it at the beginning, you put it at the end, because it's not a value add for. I don't know.
So Mike, that might be, I don't know. I think, yeah, something's going on with my device, dude. Hold on.
All right, man. And so I think ITIL-4 is necessary at the core end. Once you've gotten the big ticket items out the way, CCNA, A plus, Network Plus, those type of certifications, you want to focus on ITIL4 after. Now, what does that mean in context to DEI efforts in the tech industry and in the layoff apocalypse? I think the more you have under your belt, the more likely it is you have the ability to pivot.
Hey, Mike, can you hear me okay now?
There's a lot of feedback coming for you.
Shit, okay.
What does that mean to pivot? Meaning that if they go down the list and they say, you know, Mike V, yeah, he has his CCNA and he has his ITIL4 and he has his project management plus PMP, I might be more willing to negotiate with Mike V rather than Joe Blow, who came in, you know, empty-handed with an ITIL4. ITIL4 has to be paired with big ticket certs. They have to be paired with big ticket certs because it doesn't mean anything from an IT standpoint if you have the understanding of management of IT-enabled services, but you don't have the IT technical certification to back it all up. And so I want to make sure I'm answering that question because I get asked that question pretty often, that ITIL4, do I need it? Is it necessary? What does it do? What ITIL4 does is it allows you to use the service management model, you know, for enterprises and managed service providers and how you deal with service management as a whole. Different organizations leverage ServiceNow and service management functions for different reasons. You know, a banking institution is going to be different than, let's say, AT&T as a service provider. They both use ServiceNow, or they both use the ITIL4 framework, but they use it for different purposes. And so it's all dependent on organization. No matter which organization you go to, you're going to have to train up. You usually have about 2-3 days, maybe 7 days at best, to really train up on their ITIL stack because they all use it for different functions and different services. So that's really the only important aspect behind ITIL4.
Hey, Mike, can you hear me okay now?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay. I maybe when I stepped away, I was getting some different headphones here. I was going to ask you a question because I was listening to what you were saying about ITIL4. Basically, what you're saying is that this is essentially like an addendum to the big certs, right? Like if you've got the big certs, you can't go wrong with this one. But what you wouldn't do is just kind of go for this one as opposed to the big certs. Am I understanding you correctly?
Right, because you need to know how to manage service management. I mean, it sounds, I'm making it sound like it's, you know, it has minimal value, but it actually does have some robust value to it. It's a lot of people underestimate it. It's not that difficult of an exam, but if you have it and you know how to navigate your way around service management, that becomes really critical. Especially in a managed service provider environment, whether it's AT&T, Comcast, Verizon, they all use this framework. And so you can't get around it. It's not like, oh, well, I'll figure it out, you know, in 2025. Not exactly. If you're going to go work for any of these organizations, they're going to tell you up front, you better know this in the next 30 days. You better know it in the next 30 days. But that's why I say get the big ticket items out the way first and then focus on that later, because you can get this first. I got people in my circle who do have this, but they don't actually put emphasis behind it in the same way they put behind what's the big cert that you know, CCNP and stuff like that. They didn't put that much emphasis behind it in the same way that they put behind, you know, CCNP, CCIE and stuff like that. They have it because they need it in the environment that they work in. I used to work in both functions. I worked in managed services, and I also worked in you know, enterprise on the enterprise client side. So I know both sides of the technological structures, and so I have a fairly good understanding of how to make ITIL4 work for the best interest on the managed services side and on the enterprise side. And so
Right.
how do you, like, for example, I'll give you an example. When I used to work for HP, I worked on a project of automating laser printers. Okay. One of our clients had 100 printers, over 100 of our laser printers. And it's hard to manage all those printers without having a service management model in store. And so your cartridges, your maintenance of the printers, and just the management of the error codes that printers tend to throw out, especially on the network side, that stuff has to be managed because you can't just like individualize it. It has to be structured in a way so that you're having accountability on the break fix side, on the help desk side. When help desk receives a ticket and it says this printer is at this cubicle at this location in this building on this floor, and and it has this specific name, we don't have to have a whole lot of guesswork. That stuff gets structured in ITIL's framework. It gets structured in there. And so that's why you need ITIL4. You need it at that level. How do you service assets? How do you manage assets? How do you engage the accountability within an organization? Because you're going to get audited. And when the audit comes and they say, well, you had 100 multifunctional devices, you had these sort of network devices, and but I'm not seeing any of this reflected within your service management model. Can you explain more about the service management model and how it engages the all of your network assets? Oh, yeah, I can write code, I can do all that, but I didn't plan for managing all these assets. Oh, well, you know what?
Right.
You're screwed. You're screwed.
Now, there are some questions, Mike. I can read them off if you like, and then if you're going to answer them.
Yeah.
Underrated mindset. What about for the beginners who want to get their CompTIA A+ and Security Plus? Would that no longer be needed?
No, you're going to need that. DoD, government, they still require A+ within 30 days. They require Network Plus within 30 days. Security Plus, you might be able to get away with that in 45 or 60 days. All government and state government too. That goes to state government and federal government. State government might be a little bit more lenient, but federal government says you better have that, in 31 days.
Okay.
Now, from
Ronan
a service management,
wait, no, go ahead and finish, Mike. I'm sorry.
Yeah, from a service management model, right? Verizon, AT&T, they won't let you touch their equipment unless you're certified. Dell, same way. Dell says, if you have a contract with Dell or HP or Lenovo and you touch their device, they're going to ask, is that guy A+? If he's not A+, he's not, qualified to be working on our stuff. And so if it breaks, they have some accountability and say, well, I thought, Ronan, I thought that guy was I thought he was certified. Isn't he one of your guys? He worked on the device. Well, he doesn't have a certification yet. Well, why did you let him touch it? That's a part of the contractual agreement.
Yep. Okay. Ronan asked, he said, interesting question. Since I passed the AZ900, should I finish the AZ104 next and then work back for more networking certs like CCNA, et cetera?
No, I think you should finish the Azure certs. And the reason why is you want to have some consistency. If you're on that track, it makes it easier to go to the next step because you're already familiar with the language and the jargon and the nuance that's going to be that's going to go with it. They used to have it broken apart. They used to have like part 1 and part 2. You should be able to take it apart, but they kind of changed that model. But I still think that if you started Azure fundamentals, then the next step is to go get the rest of the stuff if you can. I think sometimes the source material is not there. And so what happens here is you may think you're ready, but you don't have the material to really gauge whether or not, you're prepared to go in there. I know a couple of guys who have gone in, man, they just bombed it, man. It was a waste of time. So.
All right, we got one last question, Mike. You can continue. He said, Mike, could the CCNA Cyber Ops substitute the Sec Plus for DoD roles?
I think it can, and then I think it's good to have both. Realistically, because Cisco is a proprietary platform because they have their own product and their own sort of structure, whereas the Security Plus is vendor neutral. And so you're not beholden to one proprietary technology over the other. And the purposes of the certifications serve different values. They serve different reasons. They just don't have the same value set. Vendor neutral certs are for a very generalized or generalist sort of technological function, whereas the Cisco is going to be like, do you know? Because there's the Cisco way, and then there's everybody else's way, and everybody else's way doesn't work on Cisco, and so that's the reason.
All right, I think we're caught up. I think Doomba said it. He said, "What if you're in web dev and no front end, back end? Are you screwed?"
That's interesting because it depends on how far. If you're an independent contractor, that might screw you over. But if you're in an enterprise environment, web dev, there's going to be SOD, separation of duties. You're not going to be the one guy that works on all areas, what they call full stack, meaning that you're working on front end and back end, because they don't want you knowing the code in the back end and the front end, and then you have a potential insider.
And then you run off with some shit, right?
Yeah. Well, you also cause some problems too. If you get angry within the company, you might bring the website down or something like that.
Right.
Functionality down. You usually, one of the teams I was managing, we had a front end developer, we had a back end developer, and then we just had a dev manager. So there was a separation of duties.
All right, I think we're caught up here.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I just think that we just gotta be mindful. We know they're laying people off. We just want to be mindful about what we're doing. Don't be at work, surfing on YouTube and on Instagram and stuff like that, man. They pay attention to a lot of things now, and they're looking for justification to get.
I was going to say, that's really what they, that's the easiest. This is coming from a former HR guy. I mean, an employee doing things that runs afoul of their job duties is the easiest way to justify getting rid of them. Yeah,
definitely, man.
So just don't do it.
And that's why I say go for the big ticket items. Big ticket means that you're having a strategic focus on what it is that you're trying to master in. All right, this is from Reuters. What's going on here? Oh, whoops. Big tech layoffs may further disrupt equity and diversity efforts. 2023 is shaping up as a challenging year to be a woman or a minority working in the tech sector, or even a person with one too many years under their belt. Surge in firings by technology companies last year are disproportionately affecting women and mid-career talent, which may make it more difficult to improve diversity in one of the most sought-after industries, according to data from a research firm. In recent years, U.S. tech majors have stepped up hiring and made diversity, equity, and inclusion a priority. But as the industry grapples with overhiring since mid-2020, rising interest rates, and changes in business and consumer behavior, tech companies have announced deep cuts, risking their diversity efforts. Amazon will now include more than 18,000 roles as part of a workforce reduction it previously disclosed, its CEO said on Wednesday. That comes to about 6% of of its corporate workforce. Salesforce Incorporated said on Wednesday it planned to eliminate about 10% of its staff. The rare shakeup in big tech companies risks further disrupting diversity pledges that have already grown stagnant as companies de-emphasize DEI efforts. Companies including Meta Platforms, Amazon, Twitter, and Snap have together cut over 97,000 jobs in 2022. To deal with the slowing economy and shareholder pressures, according to a report from employment firm Challenger, Gray, and Christmas Incorporated, that is up 649% from 2021. Women and Latino workers represent 46.64% and 11.49%, respectively, of the tech layoffs from September to December 2022. While those segments make up 39.09% and 9.96%, respectively, of the entire industry, according to data from Revlio Labs Incorporated, a startup that analyzed data from the tech layoff tracker layoffs, FYI, and talent database Parachute list by Rocket. So let's look at the workers who have been hit the most. Women and Latino workers made up 46.64% and 11.49% respectively of tech layoffs from September to December 2022, compared with being 39.09% and 9.96% of the entire industry. Okay. Deep blue record reflects the layoffs, and light blue reflects the total employees. So white males made up 31% of the layoffs, but represent 31.35% of the total employees. So they have a massive footprint within organizations in terms of in the tech sector.
It's like literally like a 1-to-1 on that. When
yeah.
30, yeah.
White females represent a one of the second largest populations or demographics within the tech sector at 20.89% and made up 28.57% of the layoffs. Okay. Asian Pacific Islander males made up only 11% of the layoffs, but 18% of the employee workforce. And then API females, roughly 9% across the board, layoff and employee enrollment. And then you go down to Hispanic male, 7% of the layoffs, but 6.5% of employment. Hispanic females was 5.2% of the layoffs and 4.5% of employment. Black males made up 3.3% of the layoffs, but 3.89% of the employment. And Black females made up 2.75% and of the layoffs and 3.5% of employment. Now, I wanted to bring this up. I thought this was pretty interesting. You know, for all the DEI efforts, white women are the biggest beneficiaries of DEI. Okay, and then and then it becomes Asian Pacific Islander, male and female, make up the bulk. You know, black men are just underrepresented, even despite all the DEI efforts. They're just not hiring brothers like that, mostly because this is a social capital issue. We don't know a lot of people on the inside, and so we don't get a lot of the first look or the call back. And so my analysis on this is that DEI was working, but just not for Black people or black men for that matter in this regard. If we're talking about just the Black manosphere. So you hear a lot of guys in here talking about, automation is coming to take your jobs. Well, it's not really automation. It's really DEI efforts. It's really DEI efforts that are just lacking. And so what does DEI mean? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is a political reality. You're gonna have diversity. People call the United States a melting pot. They understand it's a reality. That's nothing. That's not anything that can be argued against. But inclusion is where the hiring process comes in. HR, talent acquisition. Who do you know in your LinkedIn network? Who do you know on the street? Who did you go to school with? Your MBA program. These sort of things really matter. And I think that the DEI efforts weren't enough. After George Floyd, they made all these pledges, but then what happened? If you're telling me that Black men make up 3.3% of layoffs, but only make up 3.8% of the workforce, where was the effort? I'm not seeing it. Mid-career talent is also overrepresented in layoffs, said Rehan Ayas, Revlio Labs senior economist. Meta, for instance, committed in 2019 to doubling the number of Black and Hispanic employees in its U.S. workforce, as well as doubling the number of women in its global workforce by 2024. Donald Tomascovich Devi, sociology professor at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, who studied U.S. equal employment opportunity in data for 2008 to 2016, found that about 7% of tech firms are actively trying to diversify their workforce, like I was saying earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Devi said if the same pattern holds, the current round of layoffs will lead to fewer women and non-Asian minorities in tech firms and further entrench the dominance of white and Asian males in the industry. Twitter was hit with a lawsuit that claimed the social media company disproportionately targeted female employees in layoffs. Snap and Twitter did not respond to requests for comment. Meta declined to comment. No shit.
Yeah, right.
Black and Asian talent has been less affected by the job cuts, but the unexpected layoffs in the tech may make it more difficult to attract diverse early career talent to, quote, the cool kid on the block or well-known tech companies, said Morgan DeBond, CEO of Blavity, which hosts the largest annual Black tech conference, Afrotech. This will disrupt diversity efforts even further, said Benjamin Juarez, a recruiting consultant and co-founder of Latinos in Tech. Underrepresented talent will face increased competition for entry-level roles as experienced workers settle for those jobs, he added. So we was just talking about this. Focus on the big ticket certs because you don't want to be trapped in that competition for entry-level roles. Okay, you don't want to be trapped in that. You want to get those ground level certs, those A pluses, those network pluses, those server plus, those well-known branded certs that have a lot of return on investment. You don't want to
stay out of the rat race if you can.
Yeah, you don't want to be trapped trying to go get a bachelor's degree just to be in an entry-level role. You want to try to get, you want to kind of maneuver and position yourself with some of these big ticket certs if you can. Entry-level jobs often present.
Oh shit! I thought you were finished, bro. When you finish this up, we got some questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, entry-level jobs often present the best option for diverse candidates to get a foothold in the tech industry. Quote, someone looking to break into tech for the first time should anticipate that it could be a long road, said Amanda Daring, co-founder of HR consulting firm Nuance, which builds finance and tech teams at startups. I said that earlier. Companies have made cuts to budgets allocated to make workplaces more diverse, said Nadia Johnson, CEO of Milky Way Tech Hub, which helps corporations source diverse candidates. Quote, there's been patterns of pushing back projects that at one point in time were a priority, especially the first year or two since the George Floyd murder, she said. Still, some are helpful. Didn't I say that earlier?
Mm-hmm.
Latinos in tech, Juarez said he is hopeful that massive layoffs will give rise to minority-led startups, his preferred solution to the stagnant DEI efforts. Quote, we want to increase the amount of Latinos in the tech space, but we're starting to see that some of these DEI efforts just don't work, and we just need to essentially build our own path. It's exactly what these tech talks are about. Okay.
Yep.
So it's not just me saying this, you know, the correspondents in this article are saying the same thing, that, you know, you're going to have to build your own path. You're going to have to go for these big ticket items. You're going to have to get in at these emerging tech sectors. You know, a lot of people will say in this space, they'll say, you know, oh, well, you know, I don't believe that micro transportation. I don't believe in, you know,
I knew you were about to go there. I knew it.
But they have to accept that Black people have to be at the emerging tech side. They have to get in at the beginning of those. When you hear things like Web3, blockchain, we were talking about this a few years ago. That was the time to get in.
Yep.
Okay, that was the time to get in. This was not about, you know, you don't want to be on a help desk role, trying to compete with other minorities, like the article is saying. You don't want to be competing like that. And so that's why we always put emphasis behind going for the, don't be afraid to challenge some of the new autonomous vehicle sectors, you know, the robotic sector, you know, the metaverse and these sort of areas. That stuff is
IoT,
really
man, all that.
Yeah, that stuff is really key too. And so if you're trying to get into the IT side, my advice would be also to check out Google certification too. I think that that's actually still a robust certification. Let me see if I can prop it in here real quick. Let me grab this.
Hey, Mike, do you want to hit these questions now or after you share this?
Let me share my screen first.
Okay.
All right, this is from Google. Google IT certificates. So this focuses on all areas of, you know, the IT at the entry level. But the trick here is Google, when you pass the certification or the certificate itself, Google finds you employment through through this job filter. So other employers like Target, Best Buy, these other organizations will pull from that talent pool. And the whole purpose of this was to bring more diversity into the tech sector through these certificates. And so I think that from what I've heard, I haven't taken the certification myself or the certificate myself, but I have heard very positive things about this. And so I think if you don't have any certs, I think that this can't hurt you at all. Even if you don't have your A+, even if you don't have your Network Plus, this can't hurt you at all. This is actually a really good starting point. If you don't have any money and you don't want to spend any money, this is probably the thing that I would do if I was trying to get into IT. I would go this path. I would go Google IT certificate first, and then I'll go to A+, and then I'll go to Network Plus, because I need to satisfy, you know, DoD requirements or government requirements, because they still require it, despite the fact that this is still a really good certification to get.
Well, Google's infrastructure is so robust, right?
Yeah.
That it would make sense for them to literally certify the people themselves. And what better way to attract talent, right, than to make the certifications like free or like extremely affordable if what you're going to do is specialize in their platform. Yeah.
And then they have an advanced level, right? They have IT automation with Python certificate. I haven't taken that course. I don't know anybody that's taken that course, but I do know that if it's backed by Google, it's got to be legit, right?
It's legit if it's them, yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be legit. And so I'll drop all of this into the chat, and then we'll just go to questions real quick.
All right. Okay. So Red Pill Finance says, so we got a few, Mike. What are the best way to get hired as a new web developer?
You got to show your projects. You need a portfolio,
like a hub, like a GitHub or something, right?
Well, just projects.
Well, not a GitHub, clients, but yeah.
Projects that you've done for clients, right? If you did a website for for an ice cream shop or a barber shop or something like that. These are good sort of, small businesses that you can refer to and say, yeah, I've done this, this, and this. And, you can call these business owners and they can vouch for this. So, but I don't know too many companies that just hire strictly web developers. A lot of that stuff gets outsourced. And so they don't really need a web developer in-house unless they have something very proprietary that they're trying to customize for their site,
Right. Right. I'm going to throw this out here, Red Pill Finance, because I know you got another question. I'm going to throw it to Mike here in a second. There's also kind of, let's just say contracting via Fiverr, right? To, let's just say people that work at, and this is just, sort of like the facts and some of the realities of globalization, right? One can argue the pros and cons. We can probably do that on another live stream, but for the sake of your question, if you have a partner that only requires but so much, in terms of USD conversion to their currency, and they do like high quality work. I've done this using Fiverr and stuff like that. Well, you could have that sort of branding and representation if you make that investment to work with somebody overseas, right? And you have them on to do specific tasks, for example. So that's one idea, and another idea would also be potentially and you're saying hired, but like what Mike was saying, it's web development. That's kind of it's an interesting thing, right? Nowadays, because it's not as if people they kind of just hire web developers like that. Like there's a kind of works a little bit different. So I'm just giving you my inputs on that. But that would be one. The other is looking into how it is that, say, AI applications can assist with the development process. There's a lot of guys out here that are using ChatGPT and some of these other AI bots to just do a lot of the dirty work when it comes to web dev for them. So I would also recommend looking at that. Those are just some suggestions that I'm going to just follow up on Mike and throw that out there. And the Red Pill also asked, so you're saying a niche down on the technology of your choosing. Mike, you want to handle that one?
I'm sorry, say that again.
He said, so you're, this is at one point of what you were saying. He said, so you're saying to niche down on the technology of your choosing.
I don't know what that means.
Niche down. So basically what it is that instead of looking at the greater scope, and I think this was with regards to web development, right? I think what he was asking was in response to some of what you were saying, he was saying, so should I niche down within the web development space? Like find a specialty niche within it.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that
Okay.
Companies want people to be generalists and not so much a specialist anymore, because they're laying people off, and so you need to be able to cover more than one base. And so I think that you want to add something else to whatever it is that you're doing. I work in the healthcare space, but I work in cybersecurity specifically, so I have a better understanding of how healthcare policies work in conjunction with security best practices. And so I have dual ways of how I have to engage the business units.
Okay. Jibba Jabba says, so if we have low representation, a strong skill set and networking can solidify your position.
I really can't understand what's being said.
So, okay, I think he was saying with regards to like how the percentage that we represent, right, within the tech space, right? I think then, what was it, like 3%? What was that number? It was really low.
3.3%.
Right. So he's asking is
3.8. Yeah.
3.8. So he's saying like, so if we have a low representation, will a strong skill set and networking, can that solidify your position?
Yeah, that's always going to, that's agnostic of race and ethnicity. I think the problem is in regards to the DEI efforts is that the people doing the hiring don't look like us, and so they're more adverse to hiring black men from my understanding, and based on what the article is saying. The first thing they want to do when it comes to job cuts is they want to go after that first. They really weren't committed to it. There's a lot of DEI stakeholders who just operate in bad faith. They don't really have the best intentions of the organization to really diversify the workforce, and primarily because they're just not, they're indifferent to having that level of diversity. They're okay. Silicon Valley has a reputation for having something called tech bros or something like that, right? The bro culture, and so black men don't necessarily fit into that. At least not well. We covered an article back in January about a black man in tech and his experience, and everybody pretty much has agreed that is a shared experience across the board, that there's an unwantedness for black men to be in there. And so I do think that there's a double consciousness that black men have to uphold, or black people, I should say black women too. But I think and for the sake of conversation, black men have to uphold this double consciousness to be in that sort of environment. And so the warfare is real. To go inside these environments, warfare is real, and that's why I say you gotta come in there with both guns blazing in order to get that recognition.
Okay, Faber has a question. So for people in boot camps, if companies aren't hiring for web developers, then what positions should we shoot for?
I think the big tech stuff is really where the I think the big tech stuff is right where we need to be at, man. I think managed services is really a good way to get in. AT&T, Comcast, RCN, Verizon, they're always hiring for roles. I think the pay is pretty good too if you can work third shift, because you get more money that way. I know guys who are working third shift, and they used to have an Xbox in the operations center, and guys used to be playing Xbox 3 o'clock in the morning chilling. So I don't know if that's still happening, but I do know that did happen in the past.
All right, I think we're all caught up.
Yeah. What's going on, Prof?
How y'all doing?
Chilling, bro.
Chilling, man. How's it going?
Great information. I was in Silicon Valley about 10 years ago, and you're right, it's not very inviting, man. So you have to have a special mindset to go out there. So
yeah, I think black men, even when they are from California and they kind of know they kind of embedded in the environment, there's something that's triggering the tech bros in Silicon Valley to say, nah, I don't really, we don't really need DEI. Like, how can you say something like that and then claim that the country's a melting pot? It's just really strange. And so they don't like to produce their numbers to say that, oh, we have this many, this much representation of this X group of people. They really don't like to do that because they can't produce the numbers. But you see that there are more white women at 28% in the tech sector compared to black men at 3%. In fact, black men and black women combined, right? I think they make up only 8% combined. And so the question is why? Why do we still have these problems after George Floyd? Why are we still having these problems in 2023? Why are we having these problems when it comes to tech layoffs? That the first thing they want to go after is the DEI initiatives. What's the problem?
Well, number one, that those chicks hold a lot of positions that literally do not require like tech knowledge, so to speak. They're on the sales side or admin. Mm-hmm. Like they're not even actually on the development side. Most of them, right? Mm-hmm. That's the first thing. And the second thing, it's it's like I think you said it earlier, Mike. It was one of those my dad's friend owns the company type of hire.
Nepotism, yeah.
Yeah.
And too, like you said, they real big on that pattern matching. And since they're out there, they the elite of the elite. So I think a lot of them believe they don't need to do diversity. Right?
But it actually hurts them though, right? Because companies that do well on the stock market, if they're publicly traded, they're the ones who actually have a lot of diversity. Look at Google CEO. Microsoft CEO and IBM CEO. They're all Indian. They're all melanated, right? They're not like fair skinned. No, they're melanated. And so that is not, it's not trickling down. There's no trickle down effect. It seems like the DEI is at the top and they can say, whoa, we got diversity up there at the CEO level. But then when you get below the C-suite, it starts to slant off, right?
But Indian dudes can be rougher than white dudes, man. I work with some Indian guys. They kind of on that elitist thing too, man, because they go to the elite Indian school, then they come over here and go to MIT, Harvard. So I think they're on that eliteness too sometimes.
Yeah, they come from a caste culture.
Facts.
They come from a caste culture.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
But in my experience,
that has more to do with their culture.
Yeah, in my experience, I think most of my hiring has come from Indian managers than not. And so I have not been hired by a white manager in my career. All my hiring has come from either an Indian manager, an Asian manager, or maybe some other mixed biracial person who's ambiguous and I can't really tell who they, where they stand, but they actually were the ones doing hiring. I have never been hired by a white person. And so in my experience, I would say that Indians tend to have a lot more to gain from the diversity aspect because from my experience, white people don't want to work for Indian people. If they don't want to be subordinate to them.
Facts.
They don't want to be subordinate to them. And so I think that, Black people kind of slide in that area of diversity, and they also slide in the area of that inclusion aspect. And so they fill that DEI quota and initiative, but you see by the numbers, overwhelmingly, just double the amount of white women in tech. I know some people say in HR and stuff, but no, we're talking about tech, the tech roles, where you're talking about system level programmers or system level admins and cybersecurity and stuff like that. There are more white women in cybersecurity than there are Black men and Black women combined. And so how do you square the circle in the middle of a tech apocalypse of layoffs, right? This layoff apocalypse that's hitting DEI and then hitting Black people the most.
Yeah, they dominate project management because I work at big states and government. Most project management BAs, product owners are white women.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they dominate it because I'm cool with our director. So I asked them, like, man, y'all got a white volleyball team over there, man. Y'all need to get at least get some Black women in there, man. They were just, and she was cool. So we just actually had that conversation. And the thing is, like you brought up, is we don't have the certs, we don't have the degree, so they use that to gatekeep.
Yep.
And I told her, I'm like, you making that shit up. You don't need a degree to be a business analyst. You just taking requirements. She said, well, that's what we do. I'm like, I need to stop. I was cool enough. So that's the game. And two is people get mad. I'm like, let's just blow DEI up because it's just really advancing white women. People of color not taking advantage of. Let's just blow it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how do you rebound and how do you, pivot around the industry is that final piece, right? Recruiting, taking on contracts, 6-month contracts, 9-month contracts, 12-month contracts. I would say for Black people, especially Black men, the contracting sector provides a lot of opportunity for upward mobility.
Facts.
Okay. It's not uncommon. A 6-month contract is not uncommon. When I first got started in IT, I had a 3-month contract that got extended to 6 months, and then it got extended to a year. And so, it allowed me to get my feet wet in areas that I typically would not have been hired for directly for a full-time role. And so I think contracting, is a way for companies to acknowledge DEI quota matching, but it's also a way for you to benefit and leverage, that ability to pivot and say, yeah, I work for Dell, I had a 1-year contract, I was doing this, and this, it works because you get the experience, you get the environment. The only problem is you just got to accept that you're not going to get the vacay. You're not going to get the bennies. That's fine. If you're childless and you ain't got no kids and you're kind of if you got the ability to mobile around with a car and stuff like that, you
digital nomad status.
To an extent, some contracts don't allow you to work remote because
they won't. You got to stay stateside or local.
Well, it depends on what kind of data you're managing. What kind of data you're holding on to. A lot of my guys that I was working with before, they're field techs. They do 3 or 4 tickets a day and they go home. They're on the road maybe about 200 miles, 300 miles a day. And that can be easy. I can go 50 miles one way to work and then go 50 miles to another site. That's not uncommon. Some guys like driving. That's why you see a lot of people doing Uber and Lyft and stuff like that. They can double that. I knew a guy, a Jamaican guy. He did DirecTV. He did Dish, DirecTV, Uber, Lyft, and what's the other one? What's the other one? Comcast. He did
DoorDash or something? Or?
No, Comcast. He did Comcast.
Okay.
He was a contractor for Comcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but like you said, most, especially tech job now, it's contract to hire because they want to test you out. So,
well, the benefits are there for them on the corporate side.
Yep.
Right. Yep. The benefits are there for them.
Because when I went first DOD, the guy convinced me. I almost didn't want to do. He's like, "This is a 6-month contract. I know you're gonna do fine. They're gonna extend you." So I did it. Then 10 years later, I was there and I progressed. I got to the top team. But like you said, I started off on contract, right? Then you just kind of work your way up because you got to get your foot in the door somehow. So.
Yeah, I remember.
Now, Rage Machine is saying here, he said, in contracting, isn't most of the tasks simple and minute? It's straight to the point work.
That's
not necessarily.
I was staff aug, so I mean, there's different contract levels, right?
I was gonna say, not necessarily.
I was staff augmentation, so I was just part of the staff because they need additional bodies. I started off as a programmer, then progressed to web admin, DBA, integration team, right? So a lot of times you got to get foot in your door. Like staff aug is one way to do it. Staff augmentation. So that's a cool thing.
Yeah, MOT says it right here. When I was a project manager, I went from a 3-month to a 3-year contract. Yeah, that's not uncommon. Right. That's not uncommon. Right. I know in Massachusetts they try to crack down on that because they think that if you're a contractor and you're doing the same work as everybody else in the office, why aren't you full time? Right? You have to give them some bennies. And so what they worked out on the ballot, on the ballot initiative, for every 40 hours you work, you get 1 day off. Something like that. I think that's what it is, or 8 hours or something like that. So
what DOD did is because contracting companies was robbing people, you would work overtime, they would bill for it and wouldn't pay you for it. So DOD said if they work overtime, you got to give them some of that money, right? So they were killing people for about 3 or 4 years, and DOD was like, if we pay you overtime, you got to pay them at least straight time. So. Like you said, so they trying to balance it out because they were just killing young contractors.
Yeah. What big stadium projects like the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Georgia, football stadiums, basketball stadiums, stuff like that. They still run a lot of network operations in there. I know a lot of guys who like to, they wired up some of these stadiums. They spent a lot of time doing that. They like that type of stuff, man. A lot of black men that I run into, man. One of the other brothers I ran into a few months ago, he's a Juniper guy. He's a network engineer, but you never see him. The only time I saw him was on a Zoom call, on the all hands meeting. And so it's like, damn, I didn't know this brother you work here. But he's in the background. He's in the data center. He doesn't even care about coming out and seeing anybody. Long as that paycheck come every Friday, he don't care.
Facts.
Faxman too, like you said, a lot of times networking is the biggest team because they usually, like you said, they on 3 shifts, 24 hours. So they want at least somebody to be in the SOC that has some networking background in the knock.
Yeah.
Like you said, those guys being there all night with cyber, they gonna call me and wake me up, right? I'm not they need me. I got the bat phone, but those guys be there 24/7. They got 3 shifts.
Yeah.
So I always tell people that's a good way to get in, get you some networking, like you said, CNA, Juniper, everybody knows Cisco's the 800-pound gorilla if you get those certs. So
Yeah,
good way to get into the door.
Yeah,
And then also the easiest one would, well, not easiest one, but Google is probably one of the most accessible platforms to get certified in.
I don't know anybody using Google in the state or the federal space. I don't know anybody using Google.
Google for what though?
That's what I'm saying.
No. Well, it depends. Like Google Chrome, that's definitely being used. But in regards to like,
I'm talking about the cloud part. Like I know a ton of people, of course, using AWS. Azure is right behind them because everybody's doing Office 365 in the cloud. Everybody's using Active Directory, AFDS in the cloud right there. I don't know anybody using Google infrastructure from a Fed or state perspective that's using their cloud.
Primarily because Google has not passed the certification for government compliance. They didn't pass it at the initial onset of bidding, right? And so that's what the whole bidding war was in at the Pentagon between AWS, for the Jedi project, right? And so Google kind of got caught with their pants down on that, but they'll recover from that. That's they get a lot of the academic contracts now, right?
But they want part of the 10 billion though. They want part of the 10 billion. It was 3, and Oracle scooted in there.
Yeah, because they're saying that you have to divvy up all of these.
You have to split it up. You're not going to get it all. Not one entity's going to get it.
Yeah, I thought they should have. I actually thought they should have made it bigger.
Well, the military is looking at this, right? You have the Air Force that has their own bidding process, and then you have the Navy, and then you have the Army. They have their own sort of budgets and stuff like that. And so, although AWS is going to be 800-pound gorilla, the thing here is Pentagon says no, you're not going to be the cloud provider for Air Force, Navy and Army. No way.
And
no way.
Facts.
That's just not going to happen, because if you're compromising, your systems go down. We're all screwed, right? So that's how they're looking. So.
But and I think to your audiences, and y'all touched on a little bit, is you got to get your multi-cloud game up. You got to be able to do AWS, a little Azure, a little Oracle. Because like you said, if one cloud goes down, you really want to be able to spin up everything in another cloud and be multi-cloud and really use it what it's best for. Each of them got their own pluses and minuses.
Multi-cloud and hybrid cloud. And so these are two different aspects, but I understand what you're saying. There's a nuance there.
Mike, you want to cover this comment right here?
Yeah, once I get my certs, I would like to just know that there is a way to get a foot in the door and then upward progression for Rage, that's what we're saying about contracting. I can't really recommend any contracting agencies because I don't get I don't get a bonus for that. Finder's fee for that. But what I do know is your top contracting firms, your Robert Halfs and stuff like that, they pretty much tell you up front what the hourly wage is going to be and how long it's going to be and what you're going to be doing. And so what I would say is, get those big ticket certs, man. Get the A+, get the Network Plus, man. If you can get Server Plus, man, close the loop on that, man. Infrastructure, desktop, and networking. And from a recruiter standpoint, I would say definitely reach out to as many recruiters as possible, because it's not uncommon that different recruiting agencies have different relationships with different organizations, and so you don't know.
And some recruiters are specialists, right? You have some recruiting agencies that are specialists. That's the other part to it. Shit, there was another. Let me see. There was another point I wanted to. The other thing to look out for, Rage, is especially when the recruiter says, well, this position, they'll say like we're talking contract. They'll say something to the effect of like, well, this position will be a 3-month contract or a 6-month contract with the potential for it to be extended. You want to listen to those key words, because what that says is that at the completion of that 6 months, if there's other intrinsic aspects about you that they find valuable, guess what they're going to do? Extend that contract. They're not going to let you go. However, if you do the job for the 6 months, but they're like, we think we can find somebody better, or we may have sourced somebody better, then both of you fulfills your obligation, and they'll cut you at 6 months. So this goes back to what Mike was saying, what do you call it, a value add, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay, that's where the value add comes into play.
Mm-hmm. It's not uncommon. It's not uncommon that a contract may just go that 12 months because that's what the scope of the project is.
That's what it is, and that's what the funding was for, right?
Yep. And they don't like to go over budget if they can avoid it. And so, you may get that $50, $55, $45 an hour. I know a lot of guys who are doing double contracts, man. It's listen, them Indian cats,
man, they be stacking.
4 people to a 2-bedroom apartment. They be in there killing it. They be in there killing it.
They do, man.
They be in there killing it. Same clothes, 5 days a week, don't matter, man. They be in there killing it. Especially
remote now, they be really killing it. But 2 is just adding on to that. Make sure you get your cloud game up in there as you get the base search. Start on your base cloud search. Just pick a cloud and roll with it. What's up, Keep It Tech?
What's up, fellas? How y'all doing?
Good, man. What's going on?
Man. All right. No, I figured I'd add a little bit to the contracting because that's something I've been doing for a while now, and just wanted to give a little advice. Like and I don't know what you guys have already said. I just came in, but one thing I can say is with contracting, like DoD contracting, government contracting, don't look at it as anything long term. You need to constantly apply for more other positions as well, because you can end up in a situation. Yeah, they may say, "Oh, it's a 6-month contract with an option to extend," or something like that, or a year contract with 2 option years. That's not guaranteed you're gonna have 3 years. You know what I'm saying? And just like what Complex just said earlier, like you got to listen to those keywords. You know what I'm saying? And kind of read that contract and understand what it actually means. Look up those words if you need to, so you can understand what it means, and that it may or may not end when you're thinking. You know what I'm saying? Because that's happened to me. Like I was in Afghanistan, and I was on a contract, and that's the thing with contracts, they hire you on up until the end of the contract. They can have like a couple months left on the contract, not knowing if they're gonna extend it or anything, because the way the company is judged by whoever they got the contract through, like the DoD or whatever, they have a percentage of time that they have to fill those slots. You know what I'm saying? And so it doesn't matter if, they had somebody in there for 7 months and then 2 months, they were looking for somebody new, and they only got like 3 months left on the contract or something to that effect. Then they'll hire you for those 3 months, and they'll not explain things to you that this contract, is going into our option year. We may or may not get the contract. You know what I'm saying? If you don't understand that, then that may not be you may end up in a situation where you get a job and you only do 3 months and then you done.
Yeah.
Because
the explanation with that is that, like, let's just say in January of 2023, the HR generalist puts in a requisition for a new position, right? And the scope of the work, like what Mike was saying, covers the year for 2023. All right. Now let's just say they hire somebody, they offer it to them, they say, hey, it's a 1-year contract with, the potential for it to be extended or for the option to hire, right? But what we understand is that it's 1 year. You make it 8 months, 9 months into that, and like you were saying, well, you understood that, well, I'm coming up on like 4-5 months left of this contract here. Let me start putting some fillers out. Somebody hits you back and says, oh, you're doing that right now? Well, why don't you come over here right now and do this for us, and here's what we pay you. And then you chunk deuces, okay? The money that's budgeted for that requisition is still sitting. And they still need to pay somebody for the remaining 3 months based on the salary and the money remaining to pay that salary. That's why you might have those scenarios where you get hired in, you literally finish the 3 months, the remainder of the money that was set aside for that requisition has been paid out, and they have no intention of extending it.
Yeah, but they should tell you that up front. That's
well,
what people they don't tell you that up front though.
But that's not necessarily between you as a contract. That's between the agencies, the agency and the federal contract themselves.
I agree with you, but for me as a decent person, you should tell, especially if they're young. Like I'm old, I know that you're like, oh yeah, we got this job. It's probably going to get extended. Well, actually, they don't tell you it's 3 months.
No, well, actually they do, because what happens here? What happens here is, let's just say I'm saying so what happens here is that the person walks, they leave, and they need somebody to do the work for the remaining 3 months. Mm-hmm. So that job posting will say 3-month contract.
No, it will not.
No. I know, as an HR person, I can tell you this, right? Like,
no, he's saying on the federal level. He's saying on the federal and the DOD level, it won't say that.
It won't say that.
Okay, on the federal. Okay, got it.
Yeah, let me kind of explain it a little bit. Yeah, you're right. That's between the organization and the company, that they'll be talking about that. They'll know about that, but they won't tell the people they're hiring, because their performance is based on filling those slots for that contract, and they get rated based on that. And so they'll just throw somebody in there. They'll find somebody. They'll go through. That's why they collect resumes. They'll go through and find somebody and say, "Hey, we got this, contract." They won't tell you, "Oh, it's only for 2 years." They'll be like, "Oh, we're looking to extend this contract, or the government is looking to extend this contract. We don't know how long it's gonna last, just to get you in." And you sitting there for 2 months, and then, hey, okay, sorry, the contract ended. We wasn't sure. They just manipulate you, and they don't tell you everything. You see what I'm saying? Because they're not required to.
Yeah, and if you're in an at-will state, you're just screwed anyway. So they can care less.
Well, okay,
so my whole point for saying it was just be cognizant of looking for a new position constantly when you're doing contract work. That's mainly, I guess, the overall point I was trying to say. Sorry, well, I'm not trying to interrupt.
No, you're right.
No, you're all good.
You want to make sure you have a backup, a plan B. You always want to have a plan B. That's why you don't want to commit yourself to one recruiting firm, one recruiter. I have 5, 6, 7 recruiters.
And that's where I was just about to go. That's just where I was about to go.
I have 5 to 7 recruiters I talk to on a weekly basis.
There you go.
They're always sending me stuff. Hey, Mike, do you know anybody who can fill this role? Do you know anybody who knows Juniper? Do you know anybody who knows how to troubleshoot MacBooks and stuff like that? We have to manage this MacBook fleet. I don't know any guys like this, but I can tap, well, I would tap the manosphere, but there's a lot of guys in here who say that the gynocracy doesn't allow you to do all of that, right? And so these are the sort of things that happen that, they're constantly dinging me every week. Hey, we got this role, we got that role, we got this role. Facts. They know I can't fill it because I already told them before, I'm already committed to where I am right now. But if you do know somebody, that might be another 750 for you, if you can find me another guy. Right, another person for that matter. And so that's why you got to keep your recruiters. You always want to have at least 5 that you can talk to, 5 different firms that that are kind of established, and you want to keep a good rapport, man. You don't want to burn bridges in the industry at all, man. Especially in cybersecurity, you don't want to burn bridges because everybody knows everybody in the industry. CISOs go to CIO conferences and stuff like that. They all talk to each other. Hey, you know that guy, Josh? Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah, he was in the SOC, man. He was kind of slacking off, falling asleep and stuff like that. Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah, thanks for telling me. Yeah, have a good day.
Just like that.
Yeah, Josh gets an email saying, "I'm sorry, but we've moved on to another candidate."
Yeah. And like you said,
and Mike, I just wanted to follow up on that because I that was kind of where I wanted to go to, where I think we did. This is back in maybe 2020, where we literally talked about leveraging various recruiting firms and establishing relationships. So that means that you're always plugged in, and that's why I'll kind of speak to from my HR experience, in terms of being a hiring manager, recruiting manager, all that stuff, it's good when you have what Mike said. You have where like you have various recruiting firms always pinging you for something.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
because there's a lot of demand. There's more roles that need to be fulfilled than what is actually available, and that's why I tell guys to focus on the big ticket. You know, because what happens with HR now, and you know, they do have AI based systems. Maybe not Chat GPT, but they do use HR AI based systems.
The filter resumes bare minimum.
Yeah, because if you collect 1,000 resumes, it's just not humanly possible to scan all these resumes with your own eyes, man. You got to use some kind of filtration to try to get down to the nitty gritty. And I think that you know, like somebody said earlier, maybe you should, you know, niche down and kind of specialize in a certain thing, but you can't really do that anymore. You got to be the jack of all trades. That's what they're expecting now, man. You used to be able to be, you know, and Josh, maybe you can co-sign this, and you used to be sysadmin, did sysadmin work, network guys did network work, and programmers did programming work. Now they're expecting you to know, you know, play all the sysadmin, and play all the hats, man.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. That it used to be separated like that, and now it's you got to be a jack of all trades. You got to be able to, you know, dip your toes in all these different, you know, technologies out here in order to, you know, stand out and move up.
Yeah, because somebody asked me.
No, I mean, I'll tell you right now, I gotta know this IoT shit top to bottom. Not only do I gotta know it from literally like the component level, but then I also need to know it in terms of like on the deployment level. And you know, when I used to work for Bird, one of the biggest company in this space, trust me, those roles were separate. Okay, like the people that were dealing with all the software and all that crap, you know, they were up in a nice cozy office in Venice Beach. My ass is out on the hot ass streets, right?
Yeah.
So it was like then learning top to bottom to understand it in the fullest sense. I could go get a job and do like a specific task, but I could do that with them knowing that I have the understanding of how this all works.
Yeah, no, it's just that they're expecting a whole lot more from folks now in ways that we haven't seen before. You know, someone asked me the other day, you know, do you know SQL and do you know Oracle? Which version of Oracle? And I'm like, which version? Like you can't narrow it down to whether or not Oracle 11G versus Oracle 13 Alpha or A. You can't really narrow things down like that. It's not realistic. And I think what has happened with between talent acquisition, HR, and the actual talent in the street is that they trying to have this sort of you know, this perfect candidate. You know, this idea that you know SQL, you know Oracle, you know Java, you know all of these things. It's like, first of all, you're not doing all of this at the same time. It's just not realistic. Those sort of technologies don't even intermix with each other. Okay, it's just not realistic to have this, and so they're having difficulty fulfilling these roles because HR just kind of drops the ball because they just write a general job description that doesn't really fit anything. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense when they send it. It's like, why are you sending me this? Like, who are you looking for, really? Well, do you know SIEM? Oh, you mean SIM? Oh, yeah. Well, what about Splunk? Do you know that? Yeah, Splunk is a SIM. Oh. It's like, no, you're having a hard time finding candidates because you actually don't know what you're talking about.
And you know what, Mike, that's the crazy part, man. When recruiters are hired and they don't even know how to vet the candidate, that's the worst.
Yeah, you have a lot of non-tech people inside of the tech space who are basically, you know, they're lost. You know, they're kind of, you know, they're up to their neck. You know, they got commitments that they have to and deadlines they have to meet, and that's what's driving a lot of the anxiety in the industry. You know, I mean, but you just laid off 96,000 people. You couldn't possibly have, you know.
Oh yeah. You know, just a whole bunch of people scrambling to apply for work, right?
Yeah. So let me just
a lot of times it's just. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead. Finish your statement.
No, I was just gonna say a lot of times they they really like just copy and paste a lot of times because they don't really understand the job titles and
Mhm.
what's required to actually do the job that's being hired for. So it's just they copy paste different things, and you see that on a lot of
Mhm.
job descriptions out there that are for posted positions. So I just
Mhm.
wanted to add that. Y'all go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just want to read this statement on the screen. Rage Machine says, I want to stay in trucking and build a fleet and be independent, then branch out. I want my EE degree, but I know certs is a backdoor. But why do you want your
Is
EE
that
degree?
electrical engineering? Is that what he
Yep.
means by
Yeah.
EE?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So wait, he says I want my EE degree, but I know certs is the back door. Well, kind of let's look at that for a second.
Mhm.
Okay, what are you trying to get the EE degree in? Like, so if you get the EE degree, where are you trying to go with that, right? Like, I guess we need more clarity on like where you would use that EE degree. So, for example, um, you know, I'm now taking certification courses for hybrid and electric vehicles, right? Just for me to work on that, for me to, let's just say, get a contract where I'm doing that kind of stuff for companies, or somebody wants to hire me on and then go and do it. Okay, they're requiring the certification. They're not requiring an electrical engineering degree, right? So the question then becomes, where is it that you're trying to go, and is an EE degree necessary, right? Maybe your quickest path is certs.
Mhm.
That's why I'm trying to get clarity on it. Like, are you trying to get into like, say, like the electric trucking stuff, or because you mentioned trucking and having a fleet, so I'm kind of just trying to hone it in.
It
Yeah,
could be a
you're right.
variety of things, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Right,
you're
right,
right.
yeah.
Complex, and that's something that I guess I had to learn in because I started mentoring people, and one of the biggest issues is, okay, people say, hey, I want this degree, I want this cert, or and not really knowing where they want to go. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you got to
Mm-hmm.
figure out what you're going for, or what you eventually want. What's your eventual goal, or your end goal for what position or whatever you want to do first, and then backtrack from there, and that will give you a better layout of what you need to get, so you're not wasting money and time, on stuff that may not be necessary.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
I think people be shotgunning, trying to figure to do anything to get in the industry. And two, just backing up a little bit and I see he be techie out there. If your LinkedIn is tight and you got some certs and you got some GitHubs, recruiters will find you on LinkedIn. They be wearing my ass out. I had to block them. So if you get your LinkedIn tight, recruiters will find you.
Yeah, yeah. Chris McDonald says it's Black women's fault that we can't get machine learning engineer or Ansible engineer jobs. Yeah, I don't get no argument for me.
Yeah, shout out Chris. I'm on that Cloud Formation. That's the AWS version of Ansible. So no, facts.
Yeah, Ryle says just like in healthcare, small world in the industry, but big money in the industry. Yeah, the thing here is you step on the wrong toes, man. You may not find yourself in that industry for very
Yeah,
long.
it's gonna be hard.
Yeah. I've been doing a little HIPAA work lately. Yeah, health is super small.
Yep. Ronan Unsung says, I see that a lot, that or they expect 8 to 10 years experience for some entry or associate level work with a lackluster salary. Yeah, I just think that
I think that's a filtering mechanism, to be honest.
well, but I also think that the HR is broken. It just doesn't really serve the function in today's modern world that it probably once did in the 20th century. And I think that with new platforms like ChatGPT and Google's new platform coming out, I think you're going to start to see a lot more emerging, more precise HR technologies come out that's going to replace a lot of physical HR people from making these errors, because they have a hard time fulfilling these roles because the description is wrong. And so the AI function is going to go out there and first of all, it's going to get the spelling correct. It's actually spelling correct. Because if you ask for a network analyst and then say you must have 8 to 10 years, who are you talking to? Who are you talking to? Network analyst serves as the subordinate to the network engineer. The network engineer serves as a subordinate to the network architect. Okay, that's typically how this works. That's usually the corporate structure or the social structure within tech industries. Architects are your alpha males or your alpha people. Usually a director too. They usually serve the two functions. And then your network engineers are usually your leads, and your analysts are usually subordinate guys or subordinate people to that function. If the engineer goes on vacation, the analyst gets to fill that, just to backfill that role until that gap is closed again. And so I just think that I don't know why LinkedIn gets this wrong. Like I see a lot of these posts on LinkedIn, and I'm like, why? You're owned by Microsoft. What's going on here?
Do you think Microsoft would? Okay, this is just my brain going. I would think that Microsoft would their acquisition of ChatGPT is to ultimately incorporate into these various properties that they do own. For example, right? So there's this AI function in every Microsoft application. That little paperclip that used to pop up when you had Windows. What the hell was it?
ME.
90 ME that little damn paperclip. Okay, but I imagine they would actually bring that back, but it's full AI powered, right? Mm-hmm. They roll it out into LinkedIn, for example, and then it would actually then do the functions that you're talking about, Mike, where it'll actually go out and do the sourcing. It may even do a resume analysis review and all this, and then literally offer up a position, an opportunity to interview, and it may give a salary projection based on its analysis of the resume that it's reviewing. I mean, these are my thoughts on it. And I think that's where what you're talking about in terms of LinkedIn, I could see where AI and ChatGPT and Microsoft and all that, if they did it properly, that they would use that to source.
Yeah, and they are already starting. I just seen an article a couple of days ago about them incorporating ChatGPT into the messaging system, or
there you go.
Powering their messaging within Teams, which that's heavily used in the tech industry for collaborations and all that stuff. So yeah.
What if you Josh, what if you get contacted through an email, right? Hey, we'd like to set up an interview. This is all AI generated, by the way. We'd like to set up an interview, and then you go and you kick the little Calendly or whatever, Google Meets, you make your appointment, right? And then your appointment, your first interview before there's any sort of like human interaction or face-to-face interview is actually an interview with an AI bot.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right. And that would be like one way of pre-filtering right there, live candidates.
Well, I think they're probably going to, from my understanding, Microsoft is looking at the troubleshooting aspect for Windows, because they don't want people calling in to tech support. And so, things like, why is my printer not working? They want to be able to collect those logs and actually get a better response from the AI, from ChatGPT, if they can to do a troubleshoot resolution. They don't want you calling in. They don't want you calling in. And if you do call in, you're going to talk to a robot anyways. And so that's pretty much where they're going with this. Right. Because they want this to be seamless. They want the ability, if something breaks, can it self remediate? That's what they're thinking.
Yep.
It's kind of like a run flat tire, right? If you get a puncture in that tire, you still can go 50 miles on that tire.
Hey, Mike, is that the death of tier 1?
What are you talking about?
If I got ChatGPT, I don't need any tier 1 support. It's going to be all automated.
Oh, they want to get rid of tech support all the way.
That's what I
Altogether.
mean. Yeah, facts. But you got to start somewhere. So tier 1's done, right?
Tier 1 was already done. When you call in, to Microsoft support or any one of those,
dude, when I was working for Apple, like you literally had, I basically had to know every single device and all of the various forms of either iOS, watchOS, Mac OS. You had to know every damn thing. I'm not even playing.
A lot of that too, right? We sent overseas. So
yeah,
well, you also had.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say a lot of that came back because of language differences.
Facts. We were having problems. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Josh.
No, I was just going to share exactly what they're planning, or what they're supposedly doing. And this is it says in this article, and I just put it in the back chat so you guys can kind of look at it yourself. But they're basically saying in Teams, ChatGPT will automatically provide recaps of meetings held on the platform, generate task lists based on discussions, and provide meeting transcripts and summaries. Intelligent recap feature will generate meeting notes, recommend tasks, and personalize highlights from individuals, whether they are in attendance or not. And it says AI generated chapters will organize meetings into sections similar to divider slides in presentation. So that's one of the ways they're incorporating it into supposedly, because I mean this is on CBS News, but yeah, it's the information looks.
Well, so this is what I was saying. So if it has the ability to do that from, say, like an admin assistant, if it has the ability to do that from an admin assistant position, think about what it can do from, like, say, like a sourcer, like from an HR position.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's why I was kind of like, okay, well, based on what I've seen it do already, I could see these companies literally making, I guess you can say, jobs for this stuff, and it can do some of the like tier 1 type, like Professor Black Ops was saying, well, tier 1 security, tier 1 IT and all this shit. Yeah, we're getting rid of all that, right? And I can see it also getting rid of like your entry level jobs. Based on the description that Keep It Techie just read, like that would be a job that maybe, say, 5 years ago, you needed a bachelor's degree to get.
Facts. That's business analyst. That's the first level of like we talked about, PMO. That's what business analysts do. DA. So
yeah. Go ahead, Josh.
Oh no, I was done. I was done.
Okay.
I was just agreeing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was piggybacking on his point.
Yeah, Faber says, how realistic is it that I'll find a job after completing my software dev bootcamp if they just fired 96,000 people with more experience? Yeah, that's a tough one, man. I think you kind of got in at, a really difficult time. It has nothing to do with you, and it has nothing to do with those people who got fired, because we now know that they were letting people go who were actually high performing too. And so I think that look for some externships, look for some local projects if you can. Go on meetup.com, download the app, see what's in your area in terms of some of the dev meetups. I know Atlanta has a really good dev meetup scene down there. New York City, Silicon Valley has a pretty good meetup scene down there. Austin too. Austin has a really good meetup scene down there for dev as well. And so I wouldn't fret too much. Market is going to correct itself. A lot of those roles were H-1B visas. So keep that in mind that they brought on a lot of H-1B visas that they didn't necessarily need and they couldn't financially support because a lot of those people are working, to get their citizenship, and there's only so much you can do with some of these contracts and some of these agreements that they sign with H-1Bs and stuff. So if you're a U.S. citizen, man, I would say, man, tough it out for the next 45 days. See if there's any projects you can work on locally. Like I said, check out Meetup, check out Eventbrite. Eventbrite has some pretty good meetups on there as well, events that are happening on there, and just kind of network your way around. I know guys who have been unemployed since 2020, since the lockdown, and so it's not uncommon that you may go 6 or 9 months without seeing any real world experience. But if you can,
and Mike, can I give I was going to say, when you finish, can I just kind of throw 2 cents in on that one in terms of his question?
Yeah, if you can, I don't know if there's any certifications. You know what? Because you did a software dev bootcamp, I would venture a guess there's a DevOps certification that you can get. Actually, let me drop it in the chat right now. Go ahead, Complex.
Okay, I was going to say, so when you ask those kind of questions, like I would say it's in those times where maybe you get a little creative, right? So, we just kind of speaking to, like, I just posted the link to the article there about Microsoft ChatGPT powered Teams Pro subscription,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So since we're already looking at these types of deployments and what it is that it would have the ability to do, what I'm thinking here is that you start to look at how you can learn an AI application to like your specialty, right? So you can incorporate knowledge of that into what you're trying to do. I think that right about now, there's essentially just a hybridization of AI and then basically just about everything. Like, I think a few weeks ago on a live stream, me and Mike were chopping it up. And I was basically saying how I messed around with ChatGPT, asking it about how to create a more accurate or a more precise heat map for our electric scooter fleet, right? Based on ride data, where they most get picked up, what directions they go in, like what places like they get stolen from, right? All this type of stuff, right? So I can get feedback from it. So I've even looked at kind of like, just kind of curious about it, looking at ways on say, okay, well, how do I use this to maybe make my stuff better, right? I would think about how I would think creatively, let's just say, because I think this is more of an outside of box type of exercise in terms of thought, how you could maybe leverage something like this to bolster what you do in terms of your knowledge base so that you could actually incorporate both aspects. I don't know. I mean, I think that like, that would bring like a level of, let's just say, specificity to your skill set that might separate you from other people, right? So you got to look at these, well, I was going to say emerging applications, but it's essentially all AI, man. Everybody's trying to, be first to the finish line for, whatever type of task. I mean, like even right there, that's like admin assistant, ChatGPT, Microsoft Teams stuff, right?
Well, it's not necessarily true that everybody's looking for AI. We banned it in the workplace. We can't afford to.
Well, no, Mike. I'm not saying that. I think because the question he was asking was, it was more like should I just abandon this? Well, what was the question exactly?
No, he's just wondering if the market is being laying off, this apocalypse is happening. Should he be worried?
And that's what I mean. It's like I don't want to like cast a dark cloud. That's why I'm saying this. It's sort of like supplant that knowledge that you have with some of the emerging stuff too, because it may not necessarily be incorporated, but I'm pretty sure if you fish around, you'll start to see that people are tinkering with some sort of application for the specialization that you might be going into. And so what Mike was saying earlier, what we want to do is we want to be ahead of that opportunity curve, just slightly ahead of it. We want to know what people are doing going forward, and we want to try to be there with them at that finish line. So I'm just throwing this out here in terms of like saying, okay, I would say be proactive with regards to this. See what other people are doing.
Well, yeah, the thing here is there's an AI sugar rush in the industry, and everybody wants to be this happened with blockchain too. Everybody made all these sort of predictions and commitments that they were going to jump on blockchain, they were going to do this and do that. None of it really panned out. There's a lot of projects that are just sitting idle for all intents and purposes. Never really.
Well, ChatGPT was just hacked. This just came out today, right? So it's not perfect either. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying that most organizations don't want ChatGPT inside their environment, because what happened recently, a few weeks ago, back in, I think, the first of the month, you had a developer put production code inside ChatGPT to see what it would do. We don't want intellectual property being tested inside ChatGPT.
Yeah, that's
that's dangerous stuff, man. And so you want to be careful. You want to be careful with using AI as a talking point inside these conversations with hiring managers and stuff like that. They get really antsy because they don't want their stuff being put out there. They don't want their stuff being put out there. This has happened several times just in the last couple of months. Production code being put inside ChatGPT to see what it does, and it's like, no, you don't know who's on the opposite side of ChatGPT. You don't know whether or not that stuff can be compromised.
No, Mike. I mean, look,
I'm not saying anything about you. I'm just saying the overarching, like in the manosphere, everybody's talking about ChatGPT, and I'm just putting it out there that most enterprises don't want their code inside ChatGPT. They don't want that. No, Mike, that's literally not what I'm saying, right? Because look, how do you think it is that like Uber and Lyft and all these companies gathered all the data to then be able to roll out autonomous fleets to do the very task that humans have been doing this whole time for these companies, right? They recorded all the data, all the little shortcut trips, all these little back road routes and all this type of stuff. Oh, they swallowed that all up, right? So that would be, so what you're talking about would be no different than what these companies did. And I am not suggesting to this dude to just, type this into ChatGPT and use it. I'm saying, look at creative ways of application. That's a very broad statement. I'm not saying dump code into it or dump a question and then take its code and then do this. Hell no, I'm not saying that. No, right? I'm pointing to the Uber model and just saying, you give it the data, it'll take it from you, and the next thing you know, that's that, right? I'm just saying, even bringing up the conversation with hiring managers, they get really antsy about that type of stuff. They really don't want people leveraging AI inside the workplace unless it's been sanctioned by them. It has to go through a technical review, and that takes a long time because you have to understand that if you bring this application into your environment, you are ultimately responsible for it, and you don't want.
I would only bring up the AI. I would only bring up the AI stuff if the job that he's applying for is looking for that as a requirement. I'm looking at it as just a way to bolster your skill set. If the job requires it, then speak on it. Otherwise, don't mention it, because I have a bunch of different job experiences, right? But there's certain things I don't mention in an interview, right? So I think what he was just talking about was that, this is looking kind of bleak. I'm in this situation, but if you're telling me there's really not much there, I'm just saying, hey, well, look at what's emerging that might actually be affecting that and learn something about it. That's all I'm suggesting.
Yeah. AO says, absolutely, the market will correct. Best thing to do now is to get the hyperbolic time chamber and better yourself like Goku. Get all the certs and experience you can. I think when you're a dev, when you're a dev person, you don't really have too many certs to get other than maybe the DevOps practitioner and DevOps expert. But there's not really a whole lot of certifications you can get behind that to really to close any sort of time gaps, because a lot of times HR says, well, why were you unemployed for 9 months? How about it was a fucking pandemic? Everybody was in lockdown. You thought about that? You ever thought about that? What's going on here, man? What kind of questions are these? Everybody's in lockdown. Like, why are you asking that question? Nobody's going back into the office either. What's going on here?
Hey, Mike, one second. I just want to tell you guys, I'll catch you guys later. I didn't want to interrupt you guys during mid sentence or whatever. But I'm gonna have to run. So
Salute,
I
people.
catch you guys later.
Hey, thanks a lot, bro. Have a good
No
one.
problem.
Oh yeah, man. Thank you for dropping by.
No problem. No problem. Peace.
Yeah, Richard Dixon says GitHub is the key. A cloud cert goes good with showing off portfolio. Yeah, you always want to have a big ticket cert. Yeah. Learn Python and machine learning. Yeah, I think a lot of that stuff has come. I think Python has gotten relatively easier to learn with the latest version. I think it's like 3.5 or something like that. But I remember Python at 1x, man. That stuff is difficult, man. There's a lot of errors, syntax errors in there, man. Oh man.
I put the AWS machine learning cert in the chat if they want to check that. There it is. Yeah. So yeah, if they want to check that out, that's a decent cert. If you want, like you said, jumped on the machine learning.
Yep, Azure has one as well.
Facts.
Yep.
Facts.
ChatGPT won't code things perfectly. You still need coding background to check ChatGPT code to make sure it functions properly. This is true. Yeah, this is true. This is true.
I mean, it's akin to Dreamweaver and web code. That's why I was like, no. Don't get it twisted in what I'm saying. Yeah. But I'm saying like those who started messing with Dreamweaver, right, became very proficient web developers during like sort of like that web 1.0 going into 2.0, right, where you went from static web pages into dynamic web pages with PHP databases that powered the websites, right? So all I'm talking about is just being ahead of the opportunity curve, like in understanding, saying, okay, well, these are going to be emerging techs that are going to like affect all industries across the board. Now, to what degree, we don't know, but being ahead of the opportunity curve means that we kind of understand that technology so that when the time comes, right, you could be that person for that role. That's all.
Yeah.
I got that AWS associate architect, the one of 3 questions. Just keep grinding. It's not super hard. It's a great entry level cert. So I would definitely get it. Once I got it too, I was on Indeed. My recruiter started pinging me once I got that associate architect off AWS.
Yeah. Richard Dixon says full stack web and cloud is the foundation right now. I agree with Mike. I'm not being overly excited about AI or blockchain. Yeah, I think blockchain is it's a very unique use case. It has to be able to fully satisfy or fully justify the implementation of it. Like the California DMV with the titling aspect of moving titles on the blockchain. That makes a lot of sense. But in other areas like ordering food, like no, we're just not doing that. Zone says stolen IP. Yeah, that's very possible.
I don't know if it's stolen. If you put it in there, then you give it to it. No,
it's not stolen.
Yeah. No, I'm joking. No, I think he hit it right on the head. And from a cybersecurity perspective, a lot of code it generates not secure. Even if it's functional, it's not secure, right? Especially when you get in the DOD and federal, there's HIPAA compliance and FISMA compliance and IRS Pub 1075 compliance. They have certain security standards you have to meet with that code it generates, right? So that's just the boilerplate that you would have to add to it.
Yeah, and many companies have not caught up with that, and they won't be caught up for a few years because it takes. I mean, it took 9 months just to do policy change. That's just not realistic in a lot of these legacy companies, legacy organizations. So
Mike, we ain't even doing security right now. Oh shit!
That's what I'm saying. That's why I said you don't want to go in there saying certain things, man. You trigger some people.
You would trigger me.
Man. Yeah, because they don't want you in the environment saying these type of things out in the open. That code might be worth billions set back company years if the code is on. Yeah, that's what's been happening the last few months.
That's the thing. You have to make sure you do your research on boot camps. There's some great boot camps out there. You got to know what you're going to get and how you're going to get it and what's their guarantees, because a lot of, like you said, boot camps, they don't guarantee you jobs. They're not connected in the industry to help you get a job, so you need to do your research on that.
Yeah, and I think one of the problems that Black people run into is that they're not familiar with the technologies, and so they get into a boot camp and they're overwhelmed and they're too proud to maybe or too embarrassed to raise their hand and say, I'm kind of falling behind here. And before you know it, 5Gs is out the window because you got left behind in the boot camp. And so I think that with boot camps, you want to be careful going into a boot camp until you feel 100% comfortable with the technology itself, because you don't want to be I know a lot of boot camps that who are for profit. They'll definitely sell you the dream of, oh man, you can make this much money, and it's true, you can make a lot of money as a developer. When Google was laying off people, they put up some of the salaries. Some of these guys are making $500,000-$600,000 a year. But what I'm saying here is, for Black people, boot camps are being pitched at us as a way to basically rationalize DEI functions or DEI quotas and say, oh, we're bringing this many Black people and this many minorities into the tech industry every single year, every single quarter, whatever it is. But in reality, a lot of Black people that I've spoken to, they go through these boot camps and it's overwhelming. They have no idea what they're doing. They used to work at Kroger or Jiffy Lube changing oil. Now they want to get into tech and be, it doesn't always work out that way, bro.
Yeah, I got a story. This young black guy reached out to me. He did a boot camp and he didn't pass. So he's dangling in the wind. He didn't get the cert. He didn't get their certification. So he got nothing. So, because like you said, Mike, he was overwhelmed because those boot camps are quick. So if you don't have the basic of PHP programming and any of the stack, it's a lot to take it. So he didn't know what to do.
Because you're drinking
dangling in the wind.
Because you're drinking from a fire hose.
He is. He couldn't.
Yeah,
so I told him to take a step back, try to get in the help desk to get you started to reset. But the boot camp just kind of like, oh, you didn't pass, and they just kind of booted him.
It's a boot camp.
Well, it's survival of the fittest, and I think we want to be careful going into these boot camps. Want to be careful. Start off with Udemy, pay the $20, look through the material if you can. You got star ratings on there. I've been burned on Udemy a couple of times, but that's only because I just didn't read the all the reviews, and I think that a lot of times Black people are now being sold this idea, oh, you can work in cybersecurity. Really? You were at Popeyes last week. Really? No, it just doesn't work like that, man.
3 months, you're gonna be making $100K, Mike. The new MLM. Go ahead. That's what I'm calling the new MLM. Go ahead.
It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work like that. And I think we get sold. People are selling us these fantasies, man, about cybersecurity, AI, blockchain. Oh, the cyber bots are gonna get you, and the gynocracy. We're having a hard time filling cybersecurity roles. Not necessarily because there's not enough people, but because the skill set is so unique, and you don't want to just put somebody in an environment with millions of dollars of infrastructure, firewalls and IDSs and IPSs and gateways and stuff like that. And you don't really want people just playing GI Joe with your or some other sort of funny function with your environment, your corporate environment. And it's no disrespect to a lot of Black people who do go through these boot camps. I understand why you're going through it. You want a career change, but I do think you want to be mindful that if it's not attached to an institution like a Division IV, Division II, Division III school, Division I, I would be very careful going into some of these boot camps, unless it's free. I know some of the libraries here, Boston Public Library here, does have free tech courses and stuff that you can sign up for. As long as you have your library card, you can get in.
I would say, Mike, to that, just who mentioned it? Yeah, it was AO in the chat. Free Code Camp. That's like literally, to me, on YouTube, that's your best resource. This Free Code Camp. the YouTube channel. He just posted the website right there.
Mhm.
I've always plugged Free Code Camp because that's like a free boot camp. They got like playlists for days, the whole breakdowns on the boot camps themselves. It's kind of like a self-study. So for example, if you wanted to do a boot camp, let's just say you wanted to go ahead and go through that stuff, I would say hit Free Code Camp for a couple months before you do it. And this is just kind of like my suggestion, right? Because then you're going in armed, right? Because the boot camp gives you the certifications when you do it. What Free Code Camp does is on your own time and on your own volition, all of it is accessible. Free Code Camp is one of the dopest resources on YouTube.
And I agree with that. And two, if you look at the boot camp or anything, I did a AWS, but I look, like you said, okay, they're learning this database. I can go on Free Code Camp and I'm gonna get stuck, but then that at least give me some foundation and some understanding before I go to the boot camp and try to drink this fire hose. So like you said, you can learn PHP, you can learn Apache, you can learn Linux, you can learn auto scaling. All that stuff's on Free Code Camp with those different domains, so you can have a base understanding before you jump into this boot camp that you paid a lot of money that don't give a shit about you. They're not stopping.
Yeah. I definitely cautious of these type of things. Richard Dixon says, I wouldn't dare pay for a boot camp with all this free information online. Only thing I would pay for is time for a personal mentor. I think it depends on where you are in life, man. Like I'm a IT person by trade in cybersecurity specifically, but I'm not a programmer, and so I may need a little bit more attention than somebody else, and vice versa. You know, there's a lot of programmers out here who don't do security, and they just write code, and so security as a function of the business, they may not be familiar with that. You know, the developers are always they just want to produce the code. They just want to produce the stack. They don't really care about the end result if the shit gets hacked or not. That's our job.
Facts.
You know, but if you dropped a dev person inside security, they will like, oh, whoa, wait a second. You know, what am I doing here? They'll be lost too. And so it's vice versa. But for somebody like me, I would pay for a boot camp because I'm already comfortable with tech. But if you come in from Popeyes, man, and Target, you're going to have a lot more difficulty going into this because you're so far behind in literacy. It's just going to be difficult. And so I just want to make sure that some of these Black folk who do go out there to these boot camps, man, they're not getting swindled, and they're not getting discouraged, man. I know a couple people, male and female, who went to these boot camps, and they're still working at 7-Eleven. Unfortunate.
But yeah, too, I'm thinking about doing a boot camp, but like you said, Mike, I have a background. So I like this guy. I took some other courses from this guy. So I know exactly what I need to learn in AWS to get to that professional architect level, right? So there's some special stuff I need. And I think this boot camp can help me get to that level. But like you said, I got a background. I programmed for 10 years. I've been a DBA. So I just need some AWS specific stuff, right? That I'm trying to learn, that I might do a boot camp to accelerate what I'm doing. I'm doing trial and error. I'm learning a lot free, but a lot of times you learn free, they give you bits and pieces. They're not giving you a full project. Well, a lot of time a boot camp's going to give you a full project from end to end. Well, that's what I'm paying for. So I need to do research to make sure I'm getting what I paid for. So
yeah, definitely. I'm not a big fan of LinkedIn Learning. I've never been a big fan of LinkedIn Learning.
I'm doing it now. It's okay. My bad. Keep going. I'm doing a little bit now. Go ahead.
Yeah. I see. It's always offered to me, but I have CBT nuggets. I haven't had any issues with it. I always find that their content is pretty rock solid, and it is pretty cheap for what you're getting out of it. It has a plethora of training modules and stuff like that actually helps get you to the certification. Whereas LinkedIn Learning, you're kind of getting a little stamp, little tramp stamp.
Don't say it like that. But now,
like a tribal on the lower back.
Yeah, it is. Because I'm actually doing it now. But like we just talked about, I'm doing LinkedIn Learning from CISP, right? So I'm doing it to give me the foundational knowledge. Because like you said, it's kind of a baby step in there, right? And CISP is huge. So I'm doing LinkedIn Learning. One of the top guys do it. But like you said, it's a baby step. So my next step, when I get this fire hose, I'll be comfortable. My job pays for it, right? So they give us LinkedIn Learning. So I picked it. I thought it was pretty good. Like you said, it's a baby step because there's levels to this. So I usually do LinkedIn Learning to start. Then I'll keep progressing to some harder. So.
Hey Mike, real quick, man. Hey, I'm gonna mute up, dude. I gotta head to the grocery store, man. But
all right,
I'll just be listening. And if you end it, man, just go ahead and end it. Okay.
All right, cool.
All right.
D Stu says, what prepared you for the architect test? I'm currently using AWS study guide with exam questions.
I use AWS, and I hate to do this, kind of like Mike said. I use this Australian guy, Digital Cloud. It's pretty inexpensive. He's pretty good. Check him out on YouTube. I liked his videos, so I went on and paid for it. He has excellent practice course. Then you pay an extra $70 to get a sandbox, so you don't get charged. So those, I thought he was pretty good from an associate architect. So look at him, Digital Cloud. Just Google him on YouTube. He's an Australian guy. If you like him, then I went on ahead and purchased it. I used him. I got 4 certs. I got the practitioner, associate architect, associate developer, and I got the security specialty. All in probably 6 months using his material. You don't have to do it. I got 30 years in the game, right? So, but I used his stuff. So once again, check him out on YouTube. He's got a ton of standalone videos. Like I said, I liked him. So I went to the next step. And actually, that's the dude I'm actually thinking about getting the boot camp from. He's got a decent boot camp. These two, reach out to me if you want to chop it up. ProfessorBlackOps@gmail.com if you want to have a conversation, man. I'm old. I came here to help people, man. So if you want to have a one-on-one, we can link it up. ProfessorBlackOps@gmail.com.
Yeah, I dropped the Bolton one in there as well. For anybody looking for
let me get that Digital Cloud. I'll drop it in there while we talking.
Yeah, let me share my screen real quick.
I'll drop it in there. Still, I put it in there. I'm kind of like Mike. I don't like to be advertised for people unless I get paid, but I really liked it. So I guess I could co-sign for it. I'm going to have to reach out to him and get that affiliate link. I'll go ahead, Mike. So, no, that's cool too. Yes, straight up. And 2 is, let me climb in while Mike's bringing it up. Network is the basic of cybersecurity too. If you don't understand that, you're going to either understand programming or networking. Both of those are kind of the basics. So you need to have a great understanding. And 2 is you got to control your traffic. So if you can't control your traffic on cybersecurity, you're going to get hacked. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I just want to drop Bolton. Bolton's a long. I mean, I've been using this for 10 years, man. I can't stress enough, man, how reliable it is. You don't need to have like a physical network set up. It does have simulators for AWS and Azure. If you want to get your CCNA, that's all up on there. I find that it's very robust, in my opinion, based on my experience.
Yeah, I actually follow a young guy named Network Bruh. That's what he uses Boson for all of his labs he does on YouTube. So, and 2, even in AWS, you got to set up your VPC, which is your networking traffic, right? So you got to understand the basics of this, so you can't set up AWS because you got to set up your private subnets, your public subnets. How you gonna get to your database? How you gonna get your S3 bucket? You got to understand the basics of networking if you're gonna do cloud or cybersecurity. So,
all right, let me get to the next one. Free Zone Lou. So I'm new to the IT world. Question. So there are boot camps that will place you in a job after you complete it. Some of the boot camps do that because it works to their favor, right? It works to their advantage if they can get you a job straight out of the boot camp, but it's not always guaranteed. And so some boot camps are doing different things where like they have projects that they'll have you work on. And then that becomes your portfolio for the next, job interview that you're going to go through. And plus they're connected with, depending on where they are, like in Miami, or Orlando or Tallahassee, in these areas, there's quite a few organizations down there that love taking on, junior developers and stuff like that, because they have a lot of work that they need to do. There's always work to do when you're a developer, always, man.
What's your take on that new one now, where they wait for you to get hired, then they take part of your salary, man? I thought that was I don't know if I like that. What was your thought on that? I don't know if I like that. Go ahead, man.
I can't really I haven't had any experience with it, but what I will say is
me either.
It depends on how much.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it depends on how much. It depends on how much of the salary they're going to be taking. If they're only taking 10%, then that's fine. But but if you take it 50% of my salary, I don't know about that, man.
That's almost sharecropping. I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna throw it back to you on that one.
I'm all set with that, man. I'm all set with that. But if you say you're new to IT and in a boot camp, saying that they'll place you in a job after you complete it, the question is, can you complete it? Because I know quite a few people who've gone through these boot camps and they don't come out the same way they came in. So they're kind of defeated after that. So what I will say is I would play with some of the technologies first in the simulator if you can. There's some pretty good books out there on Amazon that, depending on, I like to read. I'm an old school guy, man. I like to read physical books, man. I got a e-reader too, but it's just sitting there. It's collecting dust. It's only if I travel or something like that, I'll bring it with me. But in terms of like getting acclimated with the technologies and stuff, that's what Bolson is for. I dropped that link in the chat if you want to use that. Books, I'm a big fan of books. I like to highlight things just so I can go back and for a reference. I like to kind of get familiar with the technology first before I even go head first into a boot camp. Right. Last time I did a boot camp was like 2016, and that was for dynamic and static application testing. It was worth it. I learned a lot from it, but I don't do that every day, and so it's just another bonus for me to add it to my resume. And my employer, my boss, they knew I was taking the course, and they were pretty ecstatic about it.
Yeah, and two is a lot of times your employer would actually pay for it. Two, they want you to stay 2 years, but I feel like I was going to stay 2 years anyway. So depending on where you at, just kind of figure out how if you have a job, a lot of times they have some kind of tuition reimbursement. A lot of times certs is in that level. Chris, I agree with that. Once again, I'm doing a LinkedIn, but a lot of times I use it as a base stepping stone, just like he said, to become acquainted with a specific cert or particular technology. Once again, I'm using it for my CISP to step up.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the way to go. WGU is for each of their courses, they make you sit for a cert. So that's actually the best way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are coming up a little different, man. Back in the day, you had to go through the help desk. You had to go through the ladder. You have to go through the ladder. Now these guys are skipping the help desk and going straight to dev. But that's good though. That's good.
Yeah, I think it's good. But a lot of times too, I started off as a junior programmer and we got all the help desk questions, right? Because they put something's not working in the app, then they give it to the junior developer. Then I had to work with the help desk or the customers. But all that's, two is like you said, I think there's different ways to get into certain domains. Like you said, I was a junior programmer, system analyst, DBA, web admin. Like you said, it was kind of like an apprenticeship you had to go through in the old days. So.
I want to mention this about salary before we close out. What I'll say about salary, man, negotiating salary. You can use Indeed to kind of measure whether or not the hourly rate, the salary that they're offering you is going to be something that's viable. But always negotiate up always negotiate backwards, right? So set your number high. So let's say if they say $45 an hour, tell them 52, tell them 53, tell them 55 if you can. And then if they say, oh, the most we can do is $52 an hour. Oh, well, we're going to be doing $52 an hour then. You're not going to sell me at 45. You're not going to sell me at 45. And so you want to start from 10% greater, right? And then let them negotiate backwards. And don't let them think that all of your eggs are in one basket, because what's going to happen here is, they'll just throw anything at you. But if you say, oh, I got another offer pending, and they want you that bad, if they really want you bad enough, then they'll throw more money at you.
Facts. And don't be scared a lot of times. And I've done that in my career a lot of times. Oh, I don't want to lose this job. Then I get it, and I talk to white dudes. I'm like, well, hell, he making $15,000 more than me, and I'm better than him. So
yeah,
understand what your skill set demands, understand where you work. But two is be realistic. I'm not telling you to settle, but I hear people say, I got 2 years experience, I want 100,000. I'm like, dude, right? So like Mike said, have a realistic understanding of what that job description has. And like you said, Indeed, you got Glassdoor. There's 3 or 4 things that can tell you in your company kind of what the range is, so you can kind of figure out what's going on.
Yeah. It depends on where you are. Entry level jobs, you may not be able to negotiate that. That's where the recruiting function comes in, and you're kind of set in that rate. That $45 an hour, you're not going to negotiate that. That's hard set in stone. They're not going to move on that because they've already procured the financial resources for that role. They said 45, that's where it is.
Man.
But there may be some flexibility if you have to travel and stuff like that. When I used to travel, drive for work to different sites, I was able to get my gas expensed, phone expensed, different sort of little nuances here and there for expensive maintenance and things like that. They may throw a few bucks at me for maintenance, but the point of the matter here is always negotiate from the strong position. That means 10%, 20% greater in salary than what is actually posted. If they can't meet it, then you balk, or you walk backwards on them and say, okay, well, if I can't get that $55 an hour, then what about, how far are you willing to go backwards? Yep.
Then two is, I already remember a lot of times too, is you want the money, but you want the skills. So even if you take a lower job, if it's DevOps or something in the cloud, in your mind, you're like, 6 months, I'm out of here, right? Sometimes you need to get that skill set because you know it's going to pay, right? So there's some jobs in my mind, I'm like, I need this skill. I'm going to take it for 6 months, right? Then after 6 months, if they're not going to bump me up, I know I can leave, but I need this 6 months of experience with my certs, and I know I can command $20,000 or $25,000 more, right? Because a lot of times you need a certain level of experience or something, and somebody to sign off on that.
Yeah, Chris McDonald says Glassdoor is a good site to apply for jobs on. I probably wouldn't,
No, I wouldn't either. I use Glassdoor to figure out how much they pay. I've never applied for a job on Glassdoor. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. Same thing with reviews about companies. If how many stars it has. Anything less than 4 stars. I kind of get iffy. Why is the turnover rate so high, and why the star rate is so low? So, no. Let me see. Let me see.
Yeah, I'm an Indeed guy. I just kind of, I think I said that before. I'm kind of Indeed guy, and like Mike, I got a couple headhunters that hit me up. Then too, you gotta get your LinkedIn because headhunters are all over that. So if you open up your LinkedIn and have your Indeed on public, if your skill sets at a certain range with your certs, they'll blow your phone up. I got 3 Indian firms that just getting on my nerves. They send me stuff that I don't even want anymore. I'm like, dude, I ain't programmed Java in 10 years. I don't want that, man.
But they want to know, do you know somebody that can do it? And so that's kind. They're trying to leverage. They kind of leverage you. Yeah.
But what I hate when they did is I applied for a security job. That's what I asked for. Now you sending me programming jobs. I'm about to block you because you pissing me off. But I know what they're doing though. I understand the game, but I'm old and grumpy. I'll block you in a minute.
Let me see. Chris asked a question. what are the top sites y'all recommend? Indeed and LinkedIn. I think those are only two sites you really can reliably apply for a role for. LinkedIn is simple, right? That one-click function, right? And, you know, your profile applies to a
Indeed's
role.
the same way. Go ahead, my fault. I got Indeed on one click, and they got the artificial intelligence. So when you click on 10 jobs, you wake up in the morning, you're gonna have 10 that matches those that's gonna hit you up on Indeed.
I've never applied for a job on Indeed, but I've always used it to kind of like look at different different functions on different roles and stuff like this, different responsibilities.
I signed on. They cool. They got a cool feature when you job. You got a queue on there. It tells you if you apply. You can move it to interview. If an employer looks at it, it tells you if it was viewed. They can decline you, so it comes up in red, hurts your feelings. But it's cool because you can do it in one click. Now I'm lazy. If it ain't on Indeed, I ain't going to no employer. It's like I need to do that one click. So. Yeah,
Monster is still a good job too. A good job.
I gave up on Monster. Go ahead, Mike. I gave up on Monster, man. I'm Indeed junkie now, man.
Yeah. In terms of LinkedIn and Indeed, I've never used Indeed, but I have used LinkedIn. But I've always gone through 9 times out of 10 straight through the employer's website. That usually is the go-to way to apply. Recruiters are going to tap you, and so they're going to do all the heavy lifting for you in terms of the negotiations and paperwork and stuff like that. So
facts.
In terms of what are your thoughts on Dice? I thought Dice was dead.
I haven't used Dice. Like I said, I haven't used it.
Yeah.
So don't do it, AO. Switch to LinkedIn or Indeed.
Yeah, I haven't used that in years, so I don't even know if it's still up. But ZipRecruiter seemed a bit all right. Yeah, a lot of these sort of third-party sites, you know, they serve their function. Monster started doing the contract work for the federal government. They're kind of like the, service provider for job board postings for the federal government now. So,
yeah, I went from Monster to Dice. Now I went from Dice to Indeed. I haven't really tried ZipRecruiter.
They pump a lot of jobs out to you, but I've never applied to anything. I don't know. I haven't had any experience with it.
Yeah.
What's going on? No guarantees.
Peace to the Black Bank Trust.
Yes, sir.
What's going on?
Yeah, anything you want to add? Got a question? I think he might be having some mic issues.
Yeah, he came up twice and disappeared once.
Sorry about that. Can you guys hear me?
I can.
Okay, sorry about that. My connection is spotty, but peace to the Black Brain Trust, Mike V, panel and chat.
Yes,
I'll just touch on a few brief topics that you guys mentioned before I drop off. So I've utilized ZipRecruiter, which is probably the most expedient in sending out your resume. I can't speak to the effectiveness of securing a job via ZipRecruiter because I haven't been successful. Majority of my success has been via Indeed because of the one-click apply. I find that very useful. Companies that don't have that, I have to consider that as them not being business savvy. For Indeed, I think Indeed is a great tool. I've heard that it's effective if you're in the tiered program where you're paying for the monthly subscription. Myself, I have not subscribed to the monthly subscription, but I am considering it for later on.
He dropped off.
Yeah, I'm here to be back. I've never paid for the monthly inscription Indeed, and I probably got at least 3 or 4 jobs off Indeed. And I probably since the beginning of the year, I've got 5 interviews off Indeed, and I haven't paid. Go ahead, Eno. You back?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, bro.
Briefly, and then I'll drop off.
Yep.
I am currently in a situation with an analytics company that has hired me on for job description A, but switched me over to job description B. And I've experienced that quite a few times. especially if you have like a varied skill set where you've dibbled and dabbled in various things. Employers find that attractive. So just keep that in mind if they want to transition you.
You must be spy. I think that's just natural because you're gonna want promotions, right? So you're gonna show what skill set you can go to get to the next level too. So
Yeah. Oh, he's back. Okay.
Okay. One more minute and I'll be done.
Okay.
I just want to again share with the listeners. There are some aspects of IT that are not heavily documented online where you can just go and search for a script or be able to reach out to a help group. There are some avenues that exist where you will be out in the middle of the ocean with one paddle, so to speak, in order to accomplish some of these goals, which is a great opportunity, I would say, in order to carve out your niche into this environment. I just wanted to share that with you. My connection is spotty. Thanks again. I'll fall back. Peace.
Peace, bro. Thanks for coming up, man. Chris McDonald's last question is, do y'all recommend using LinkedIn Premium? I used to be a LinkedIn Premium guy. I just don't see the value in it. I'm not on LinkedIn like that. I don't post anything on LinkedIn. I've only used LinkedIn to really kind of connect with people and just maintain a profile. But I'm not active on LinkedIn like that, so I don't really see the value in it. I stopped paying for it after George Floyd. There were a lot of people in the tech industry. I remember back in 2014, 2015, when Black Lives Matter became a thing and people started rocking the shirts in the workplace, and they were getting, the cold stares. And now, after George Floyd, those same people are throwing up the fist on their LinkedIn profile. And I'm like, nah, I can't really rock with y'all guys like that, man. I remember y'all the same people who were looking sideways at folk when they were working the BLM shirts. Now all of a sudden y'all got the fist on your profile. Not feeling you like that. And I'm not giving LinkedIn any money to associate myself with people who I've considered to be operating in bad faith, so to speak. So
no, I agree with you. Two is like I said before, I'm on Indeed. I didn't pay. I just apply. I've been getting responses too, and I think too, I've been in the game for 30 years, so I got a pretty strong resume. So I think depending on what level you're at and how you're using LinkedIn, a lot of people use it to the fullest. I post a few things. I kind of highlight my YouTube channel a little bit, but like you, I don't use LinkedIn. I'm on there because other people like me and to kind of coordinate, but I don't use it to the best of my ability. I think I should be using it to booster my career and other things that you can use it. So that's one reason I don't have the LinkedIn Premium. I think LinkedIn is a valuable tool, especially if you're young, to get your name out. A lot of recruiters out there. I think you should post, get your activity up, but I don't use LinkedIn like that way personally. So
it's a social space, and
it's less business and more social now. That kind of pisses me off. Go ahead, Mike. My bad.
No, it's a social space, and I just think that for me, I'm not all that social with those folks on it, so I'm not going to pay for it. On the other side of it, on the flip side of it, I don't plan on working, beyond 2025 for anybody else. So it doesn't matter whether or not I have a profile on there, because once I get my startup up and going, man, I'm going to be out of there. So it doesn't really matter. And so, LinkedIn kind of,
you can promote your business on LinkedIn, man. A lot of business promotion on there too. Go ahead.
Well, to an extent, but I think what I've seen over the last couple of years in the lockdown and George Floyd, I've seen a lot of people. People say one thing, but then they do something different. And LinkedIn doesn't necessarily show all the racism and bigotry that goes on in the corporate workspace. And so people can hide behind a fancy profile, but they can't actually. It's a difficult conversation to have on LinkedIn. Even politically speaking, how politically charged up, Black people's civil rights are, that nobody really wants to be associated with it. And so I feel like LinkedIn is not as inclusive as it should be when it comes to DEI in talking about black people, black people in the workplace, because if black people start telling their real stories about the workplace, a lot of people are going to be uncomfortable, and they don't really want to be uncomfortable. And so it's taboo to actually have that conversation on LinkedIn, even though on LinkedIn they talk all this DEI stuff. They don't really want to hear, the narrative and experience from black people, especially black men, about what it's really like working in certain organizations.
No, I agree with you. And I think, I guess, just pivoting back, and to me, that's the way the corporation is, right? They want it how they want it, right? They don't want the real and raw part of it, right? It's just, we're going to put on a shirt, put a meme up, right?
Yeah.
So that's really consistent with the workplace, right? So for me, it's just an extension of that. But I agree with you 100%. So
dope, man. Dope. Hey, thanks for coming up, Prof, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem, man. Just give me support. That's all I got. Have a great night, man.
You too. Peace. And to everyone else, man, please hit the like button as you leave out if you have not already done so, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. And the description is in this, the docket is in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with on the replay.